Mid-October, the geese are flying over, headed for the coast. But you're not here, and it seems this time of year is when I feel it most. All that talk of heaven, well, it never resonated back in Sunday school. But I found my religion on a windy mountain ridge and on a riverbank with you. When melancholy gets into my way, I remember what you used to say. Keep the river on your right. You can't go wrong with the river on your right. And if you've lost your way and you're running out of daylight, keep the river on your right. The autumn leaves, they whisper in the trees against an endless sky. Despite it all, every leaf must fall just like you and I. And if there is a heaven, well, I bet you got your campsite all staked out. And if there is a heaven, I bet you play that country station way too loud. When melancholy gets into my way, I remember what you used to say. Keep the river on your right. You can't go wrong with the river on your right. And if you've lost your way, you're running out of daylight, keep the river on your right. Keep the river on your right. You can't go wrong with the river on your right. And if you've lost your way and you're running out of daylight, keep the river on your right. Keep the river on your right. Thank you. Thank you.
You are listening to River City Folk, a weekly broadcast of live performance, musical influences, and interview, now in its 35th year of this music that makes a difference. My guests today are Kristen Grainger and Dan Wetzel of True North, and they started us off with a song from their new album, Ghost Tattoo, a song called Keep the River on Your Right. That's just a terrific opening song on both the album and on the show. Thanks so much for coming up from Salem and doing this program today. And I should mention that we are at Artichoke Music in Portland, Oregon on this Saturday afternoon. We have a slightly diminished crowd because of the situation all around us in the world, but no less enthusiastic and no less grateful by all of us to be here. So that typically is a song that you perform with two other folks in your True North band. So maybe Dan or Kristen, you can tell us a little bit about the guys that normally perform with you.
Yeah, we're very privileged to be playing with a couple of just fantastic musicians right now. Josh Adkins is our bass player. He's also a good singer. He can play any instrument with strings on it, but in the band, he's our bass holding that down. And Martin Stevens plays mandolin and fiddle and octave mandolin, both in live performance and on that record.
And Martin's also an excellent singer, great singer. So if we ever hear us live, you'll hear Martin step up and sing one or two during the show because he's just too good to miss that part of his talent.
And one of the things I enjoy so much about your music, it's very organic in that what you sound like with the four-piece on a stage and on the album is exactly what you sound like live. So it's very gratifying to somebody like myself who cares so much about the sound of voices and acoustic instruments. Kristen Grainger, you're the primary writer of the group, and that song that you started out with is your song. And you guys have done the show once before, although it's been way too many years, and it's just so happy to have you back on it again. You were an English composition major in college, and you've gone on to a long career that we'll discuss a little bit later in the program. But you've been playing music and writing music for quite some time, decades now. These last couple albums, which we'll be hearing songs from today, I just think are really, really remarkable achievements of songwriting and performance. I always enjoyed your music, but there's just something about these last couple of albums that the songs are just very moving, and I don't know how to exactly to express it, which is unusual for me. But,
well, thank you, Tom. It means a lot to me coming from somebody like you. So thank you.
What would you attribute the songs that you've been writing over this last 5-10 years? All of the really, really very distinct and succinct images and songs that you've been working on and completing?
Well, it's a really good question. I think the main thing that I've noticed in my songwriting is that as my life goes on, I have a better perspective on the things going on around me, and that I've very clearly distilled what's important to me in a way that when I was young, I was still learning about all of those things. And maybe the result of just having a really happy childhood is I didn't really have anything to write about for a long time. But the world can be, I guess I'd say there's no shortage of material. There's no shortage of stories, happy, sad, tragic, things that move me, and I have learned to really tune into those things and to try to distill them down into the most potent version of themselves, and that's what I try to bring across in a song. She says, come on over, we got work to do. She says, don't just stand there, there's a place for you, and you, and you, and you, 'cause it's true. The different points of view, more hands and eyes and hearts to make a plan and follow through. And she flies with her own wings, she's on the lookout for better things. She's keeping her eyes on that western horizon. And if a storm is blowing, she's gonna get where she's going. In spite of bruises and bee stings, she relies on her own wings. She says it's only thunder, don't be frightened. The thing to watch for is the lightning. Yeah, the lightning is the thing that destroys. The thunder's just a noise, a bully with a megaphone who threatens and annoys. And she flies with her own wings, she's on the lookout for better things. She's keeping her eyes on that western horizon. And if a storm is blowing, she's gonna get where she's going. In spite of bruises and bee stings, she relies on her own wings. And up on the timberline, in a tall stand of trees, she's waiting for the sun to rise again. And night fades to morning new, the sky shades of rose and blue. She takes a breath and leaps into the currents of the wind. And she flies with her own wings, she's on the lookout for better things. She's keeping her eyes on that western horizon. And if a storm is blowing, she's gonna get where she's going. In spite of bruises and bee stings, she relies on her own wings. And she says, come on over, we got work to do.
My my guests today, Kristen Grainger and Dan Wetzel of True North, with a song that's got a very interesting story behind it, a song called She Flies With Her Own Wings from their new CD, Ghost Tattoo. And that song was written about somebody you know quite well.
That's right. I met Governor Kate Brown when she was a brand new legislative advocate for the Women's Rights Coalition in the Oregon State Capitol, and I was a brand new legislative advocate for Oregon Legal Aid. And we met in the lobby message center and became friends, and I've known her for many, many years. And when Governor Kitzhaber resigned office in February of 2015, she called me and said, "Can you drop everything and come be my communications director?" And I said, "You got it." So for 2 years, I helped her formulate her legislative agenda and her message and her image, and push forward through that crisis, and were met with many other crises since then. During my time in that role as communications director, we had our first college campus shooting. We had record wildfires followed by record flooding. We had a 41-day occupation by militants of a federal wildlife refuge. We had an oil train jump the tracks and catch fire in the gorge. I mean, one thing after another. And what I saw in Governor Brown was this incredible humanity, but the ability to bring people together to solve problems and to do it quickly. And now it's a good example of dealing with this pandemic where there is virtually no good news day to day, and trying to manage that and doing that with a great deal of humanity and strength and leadership, but also a great deal of gentleness too.
We are very, very fortunate to have both of our governors of Washington and Oregon working hard for us in the best interests of all of our citizens. And Kate Brown is a shining example of what can be accomplished with the right person in the right position. Dan Wetzel playing this great old guitar, and you told me what brand this was. It's got an interesting looking headstock on it before, but I don't remember.
Well, it's hard to find it anywhere because I actually built this guitar. The headstock is years ago I lived in Bozeman and I worked in a mandolin shop there, and I started it then and inlaid the headstock, and that's a phoenix from a Dan Fogelberg album cover, I think by that name. And I was intrigued by that design, so I cut out a little phoenix and inlaid it. And then I completely lost the ability to continue with the project and just packed this neck around and this top for years. And then
30 years.
Maybe, yeah, 32 years.
32 years.
Maybe 7 or 8 years ago, I ended up building this guitar, and I've been playing it since.
Well, it's a beautiful sounding guitar, and the sound very much resembles those old Gibsons that were built in Bozeman, Montana, back in the 90s. So it's a really clean, very crisp, wonderful sound. But this is obviously not the only guitar you've ever played. You've been involved with bluegrass music for decades now and played in all kinds of bands with all kinds of folks. But since you and Kristen have been married, of course, this has been a very fruitful partnership in every single way.
It has. We met playing music and started playing music together before we really knew who each other were. I was a great admirer of Kristen's singing, and she'd heard me play in a couple of bands. She was in a band and I was in a band, and our bands would warm up for each other or share shows. Mostly I was a mandolin player then, and I remember coming over and meeting Kristen's brother, who's a great guitar player, and afterwards asking Kristen, "What kind of music do you want to play?" Because their band was disbanding. She said, "I just want to meet a guitar player that can play as well as my brother." And I said, "I'd like to interview for this position, you know." And she didn't know I really played guitar much, and so we started to play together, and just it's been wonderful. We fell in love and got married, but we just have always had music be the center of our relationship.
Little did you know what position you were interviewing for.
Yeah. I didn't read the full job description.
Not great pay, but the benefits are fantastic. Seed, leaf, flower, seed. Nature ever has agreed mighty oak to tumbleweed, seed, leaf, flower, seed. Head of fire and feet of clay, spin that grindstone every day. Look up and it's early May, look again and it's October. The egg hatches, the baby sings, now she's testing her little wings. Off to bigger and better things, turn a new leaf over. Seed, leaf, flower, seed, nature ever has decreed. Mighty oak to tumbleweed, seed, leaf, flower, seed.
April rain, December snow, time to rest and time to grow. Blossoms come and blossoms they must go.
Head of embers, feet of wood, summer's gone and it's gone for good. Winter's coming and winter should, it only stands to reason. And in the wreckage of fallen trees, in the ashes of fire leaves, there's a forest worth of seeds, ready for their season. Seed, leaf, flower, seed, nature ever has decreed. Mighty oak to tumbleweed, seed, leaf, flower, seed, seed, leaf, flower, seed. Thank you. Thank you.
From Artichoke Music in Portland, Oregon, you are listening to River City Folk, a weekly broadcast of live performance, musical influences, and interview. Gary Furlow is recording today's program. Always great to see Gary and have his able hands behind the controls, on the controls here at Artichoke Music. I'd like to say hello to all the folks who have listened to River City Folk for decades now on radio station KSJE in Farmington, New Mexico, right on the border of the beautiful Navajo Reservation down there. Thanks so much for tuning in this music today. Kristen Grainger and Dan Wetzel are my guests, and we just heard a song that they recorded on their newest album, a song called Seed, Leaf, Flower, Seed. Am I right? Is it on the new album?
It's on Open Road, Broken Heart, the 2018 record.
As soon as I said that, I realized I was wrong, which is not uncommon. But in any case, a very evocative tune and just a very relaxing tune to set the stage in between some of the more spirited bluegrass pieces you do and some of the more serious pieces like the one we're about to hear. The song we're going to hear in just a minute that was recorded on the brand new album, which is called Ghost Tattoo, is the name of the CD. But this song just left me really, quite honestly, tearing up. The emotion in the song, I don't even know how you sing this song. I'm so glad to have this song in the world. It's a song about a subject that has not been sung about to my knowledge, and I hear a lot of music that crosses my desk. And this is so eloquently done, Kristen. As I said in the review that I did for your album, Phil Oakes would have been proud to put his name on this song. It has that kind of impact. Mr. Phil Oakes, who was our conscience back in the 60s, and even to now, his songs are very timeless, as is this one. So maybe you can tell us how this came to be written.
Sure. So I think it's Woody Guthrie that said a folk singer's job is to comfort disturbed people and to disturb comfortable people. And last June, when the national, international media actually was covering the detention of children at the U.S.-Mexico border, being taken from their parents, separated from their parents, and no information either for their parents or for them where they were going, and then being detained for weeks, months, in really pretty deplorable conditions. And then some of them, they fell sick, some of them died. And a very good friend of mine, Warren Binford, she's the attorney that, if you watch those accounts on the news, she was the attorney talking to CNN and MSNBC and all the national news outlets and the New York Times, the Washington Post, about what was happening at the border. And Neil Young at that time said publicly, nationally, okay, artists, this is your call to arms. It is your job to make these observations accessible to the mainstream America so they can relate to it, and it will motivate them to make changes, to make positive changes. And so I took up that call, and I was able to find on projectamplify.org, you can read transcripts of the kids who were interviewed by the visiting government officials that were visiting to see what the conditions were like. And you could tell that the children had no idea why this was happening to them. And they didn't know what was going to happen next. And they had, some of them didn't even believe they were in America. They thought they were in some kind of strange purgatory between where they'd been and where they were supposed to go. And so, as we all do as human beings, they developed coping skills. Imagine being surrounded 24 hours a day by crying, by children crying 24 hours a day. And the big ones are asked to take care of the little ones, and they have no resources, and they don't have any blankets, they don't have any food. It's just a nightmare. So they develop these coping skills where they kind of take care of themselves and they take care of each other. So I wrote this song about that, and I wrote it from the children's point of view. I wrote it from the point of view of two siblings, and the story in this is based on an amalgam of the testimony that I read. And it's there's some Spanish words in it. Abuelito is grandpa. Abuelo is grandfather, and the diminutive abuelito is grandpa. And there's also both of those words are in the abuelos and abuelito are both in the song along with Americanos, which is pretty obvious what that is. Anyway, and I write this as a way to give people something they can really put their arms around and understand that no matter what political stripe you might be, that no one's child should ever be treated like this and have to endure this.
Kristen Grainger and Dan Wetzel of True North with Kristen's song, The Ghost of Abuelito.
Miguel, my brother, he's 11. I am Alma, I am 7. Old enough to remember home. The sound of gunfire in the night, an ordinary part of life, at least the only life I've ever known. Miguel refused to cry the day we headed north from Ecuador to the USA. Even when we gave our dog away, even after throwing stones to make her stay. He says the ghost of Abuelito comes to him when he's afraid. His spirit comes down from the stars, still smells the coffee and cigars. But when he is there, Miguel is brave. Abuelito wanted it that way. Across the border things got tense, with their backs against the fence, all those uniforms and guns. Americanos took our mother in one direction and us the other, and we haven't seen our mother since. Inside 100 babies cry, and I can't stop myself from always asking why. When will my mama come to get me? Did she go off and forget me? And Miguel just takes my hand and sighs. He says the ghost of Abuelito comes to us when we're afraid. His His spirit comes down from the stars, still smells of coffee and cigars. But when he is here, we'll both be brave. Abuelito wanted it that way. He says Abuelito told him, America will always take you in. Her gates are guarded by a goddess. She welcomes you no matter where you've been. Minutes to hours, days to weeks, Miguel, my brother, hardly speaks. Bit by bit, he's disappearing. I asked him if he'd say the prayer, the one that brings Abuelito here. He says Abuelito's hard of hearing. Inside 100 babies cry. The ones that are old enough to talk keep asking why. When will my mama come to get me? Did she go off and forget me? And I take their tiny hands and lie. I say the ghost of los abuelos guard us as we sleep under the moon. Abuelos hate to see us suffer. They're out searching for our mothers, and they'll bring our mothers soon. Abuelos hate to see us suffer. They're out searching for our mothers, and they'll bring our mothers soon.
Across the U.S., from Talkeetna, Alaska to Palm Beach, Florida, you are listening to River City Folk. I'm your host, Tom May. I'd like to say hello again to all the folks who listen to River City Folk back in my hometown of Omaha, Nebraska on KIOS FM throughout eastern Nebraska. Thanks for tuning in to the program today. Kristen Grainger and Dan Wetzel are my guests, and they just sang that incredible song, The Ghosts of Abuelito. We talked about the two most recent albums, and we didn't talk about a person who I really consider to be kind of the unnamed band member on those releases, and that's, of course, Dale Atkins in his studio down there in Sun River. Dale's met a good friend, and that studio just seems to bring out the best in you guys, doesn't it?
It does. Dale is somebody we've known since our very first album. I've known him for years in the bluegrass community. He's always been a fantastic performer, and the couple of people that were in our very first rendition of True North had been in another band and had recorded with Dale and said he's got a nice setup going, and we listened to some of those recordings, so we went and visited with him, and he became our engineer on that very first album, and soon after joined the band because he loved Kristen's voice and songwriting, and we were going through some personnel change as bands do, and so it was a really good time, and he played with us for a long time, but he has just dialed in exactly how to make a guitar sound like a guitar and a mandolin sound like a mandolin, and he takes such time to perfect it that there's a sonic quality to all of our records that it just helps elevate everything that Kristen's songs are trying to say. Nothing's in the way of that, and I really attribute that to Dale.
As I mentioned when we were speaking earlier, yes, it's uncluttered, it's sparsely put together, but there's this lush string acoustic quality to it. It's really, really very well done.
The Dark Horse Bar and Grill knows you've had your fill of getting out of bed to push that boulder up the hill. And you can hide your car behind the Dark Horse Grill and Bar. They'll be glad to see you, and they don't care who you are or who you're letting down in some other part of town. The Dark Horse has a special vault for storing things that aren't your fault. The Dark Horse specialty is a time-worn recipe. Blend 2 parts denial with a muddled memory, and you can get your fill on a $20 bill. And if that doesn't do the trick, the whiskey always will. The bourbon and the scotch will kick it up a notch. The Dark Horse has a special vault for storing things that aren't your fault. There's carpet on the walls in case somebody falls. Lots of free philosophy on all the bathroom stalls. The bar stools in a row, the TV's silent glow. Everything's familiar, but there's no one there you know. And nothing's very hard. You just give the man your card. The Dark Horse has a special vault for storing things that aren't your fault. The Dark Horse Bar and Grill knows you've had your fill of getting out of bed to push that boulder up the hill. The Dark Horse has a special vault for storing things that aren't your fault. Whatever you need hiding from, whatever you find troublesome, so hand it over, but you know you have to take it with you when you go.
I like Dark Horse Bar and Grills. I like them. And down in Salem, down there where you guys live, you've got some great ones down there from years gone by.
Well, there's one in every town, I tell you, at least one.
Yeah, that's for sure. You're going to give us a song right now, Dan and Kristen, and this is a song that Dan sings, and it's called Fine Young Companion. What's the story behind this song before we hear it?
Well, you know, when you know from being a road musician, you go to a lot of diners, either morning, noon, or night. You're at some point in a diner in a strange town, and you meet interesting people that way, especially if you walk in with your instrument case and everybody wants to talk to you. But this is a story about an old guy meeting a young guy meeting an old guy, and I always dedicate it to, this is a song for all the young guys who want to know what the secret to life is, and all the old guys that know.
I'm an old guy. I'd like to meet one of those guys.
Okay.
Kristen Grainger and Dan Wetzel with Fine Young Companion.
Sat at the end of the counter, down by the toothpicks and certs. His hands were missing some fingers, a few buttons left on his shirt. Around him the customers chattered like crows on a telephone wire. Outside the traffic it clattered like a sky full of geese drawing fire. Somehow the man seemed familiar, an uncle I'd known as a kid. I heard myself ask him to join me. I think we both were surprised when he did. He said, "Oh, my fine young companion, run away from these big city dreams and get you a house in the mountains and fish all those rivers and streams, and fish all those rivers and streams. He was born in the country, served in the Vietnam War. His brother came home in a coffin without knowing what he'd give it for. He said, son, get your fair share of loving, and don't be too much of a saint. Everyone says there'll be more pretty girls coming along, but there ain't. He said, oh, my fine young companion, run away from these big city dreams and get you a house in the mountain, fish all those rivers and streams, fish all those rivers and streams. He lives in a house full of strangers, related by marriage or blood. Most days he cannot remember their names. Some days he wishes he could. He said, oh, my fine young companion, run away from these big city dreams and get you a house in the mountains, fish all those rivers and streams, and fish all those rivers and streams.
Fine Young Companion on River City Folk by Kristen Grainger and Dan Wetzel on River City Folk. It's been so wonderful to have you both on River City Folk again, and these new songs I just think are just magical. Thanks for sharing them with us. You've got a website that people can go to and find out more about your most recent CD, Ghost Tattoo, and the previous albums to that. What is that website, Kristen or Dan?
It's www.truenorthband.com, and you can also search True North, but we just recently, this last year, have changed the name of the band to Kristen Grainger and True North. Every year there seems to be another band somewhere that crops up that calls themselves True North, but there's only one Kristen Grainger, and that seemed like the best and most fitting way to change. So you can search either way, but truenorthband.com is our website. You can find our CDs there, and you can also find us on Spotify and iTunes and anywhere else.
And when we finally get back to that place where when we're out performing live again, you'll be able to find their tour schedule as well at that website. We're going to do one song all together to finish off today's program, and this is a song from the album that preceded Ghost Tattoo. What was the genesis of this song, Kristen?
Oh, like I say, longing is a big theme for me. So this is a song about longing to be noticed. So it's not quite in love and not quite out of love. It's longing to be in love, but not quite there yet.
Well, it's been great to have you here this afternoon. Thank you very much for coming and sharing your songs with us.
Thanks so much for inviting us, Tom. Like a sparkling diamond in a pile of slate, like a silver dollar in a collection plate, like a little gold locket in a lost and found. I'm sitting here waiting until you come around. Little black bumble, little gold bee, there's plenty of honey if you climb my tree. 'Cause I got the big shoes and I'll be your clown and keep you laughing until you come around. You come around till you come over, till you come around. No more cold shoulder, love is rare as a four-leaf clover. We get nothing but older until you come around. Some want whiskey, some want gin. I just want that good sweet lovin' to make my head spin like the little crocus in the frozen ground. It ain't springtime until you come around. Till you come around, till you come over, till you come around. No more cold shoulder, love is rare as a four-leaf clover. We get nothing but older until you come around. Trickling water wears away a stone. Time wears beauty right down to the bone. One heart beating, it's the saddest sound. One heart waiting until you come around. Till you come around, till you come over, till you come around. No more cold shoulder, love is rare as a four-leaf clover. We get nothing but older until you come around. Love is rare as a four-leaf clover. We get nothing but older until you come around. Thank you, Portland.